I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Nico Santos, who plays Mateo on NBC's beloved workplace comedy Superstore. Like Nico, with this show, it's very interesting to see how it came back, production came back in September last year in the midst of the pandemic, and was one of the first series to really tackle the pandemic on screen, which I thought was very interesting. It gave the show additional material to mine, and I'm wondering what were your thoughts on how the show openly dealt with the pandemic that we were all very much facing in our lives.
Yeah, I think for us, there wasn't really a question whether or not we were going to do it. It was just like, we are definitely going to, tackle the pandemic. Our shows never really shied away from other topics or things that have been going on in the country and the world. So we're used to dealing with stuff like that. But, we are playing essential workers, and we played these characters for 5 seasons now, and in the last season all of a sudden they've been transformed and been heralded as heroes, as they rightfully are. So for us, it was definitely like, not if we were going to handle the pandemic, but how we were going to handle the pandemic. And I think it would really have been a huge disservice to the people we portrayed if we didn't tackle it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the mask wearing was like a bit of a risk for the show, because a lot of it you are performing with half your face covered, and also it's such a politicized, unfortunately, a politicized issue to put a piece of cloth on your face. I'm just wondering how all of that played into when you were all first back on set and having to wear them, and the different permutations of how you thought the coverings were going to look like.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion about whether or not to do the masks, how we were gonna achieve that. Is it gonna get it away? Is it not? And we definitely sort of we had a mask plan for each episode, and if a script was shaping up to where we needed to truly use our faces to act, then we would tweak it a little bit so that we would put them in situations where maybe they were eating or having a snack, and maybe they were outside, so that mask, that we didn't have to rely on that mask being on our faces. But it was unfortunate that the whole mask thing is so politicized. I remember when our poster came out and we were all wearing masks, a lot of anti-maskers like really were just like, I'm never gonna watch the show again. I'm like, come on, it's like, we're just really it's for the safety of everybody. It's not that big a deal. Just wear a mask. Don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
you know.
I will never
Yeah.
understand it. I will never ever understand. Yeah, look, if someone had done a sci-fi movie about 2020 and 2021 years ago, and the main issue was putting something on your face, we would never have believed it. And here we are. So
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy. There's so much about this final season that I'd love to talk about. I really love how it ended. And so let's kind of talk a bit more about the season finale. What were your thoughts, actually, personally, when it was all said and done? How did you feel?
I was really happy with it. I know the fans were very, very happy with how we wrapped things up. But I have to commend and applaud our creative team. We certainly didn't know this sixth season was going to be our last. We also thought that we were going to have 3 more episodes at the back end of our season. The network had reduced that episode order. So, all those contributing factors, the fact that our episodes were cut, and that all of a sudden the writers need to scramble and find a way to wrap up 6 seasons of a show, while sort of trying to make everybody happy, making sure that everybody's story was wrapped up neatly in a pretty little bow. That is not a small feat, and I think they really did an amazing job pulling that off. Obviously, there were a lot more stories that we would have loved to have explored, given the time. We sort of find out towards the end that Mateo gets engaged. Spoiler alert. And if we had more episodes and had more time, even another season, we definitely talked about having a big old gay wedding and how wonderful that would have been. But I know, my heart. But we just didn't get the chance. But all in all, really, I mean, I still can't bring myself to rewatch the finale. You know, we had all watched it as a cast, and you know, obviously, just tears were flowing, and I haven't been able to revisit it because it's just been really, it's been hard to say goodbye. You know, it's been my family for 6 years. So
Yeah, it is bittersweet, isn't it? Because it's like it's very sad to see you all go, but it's also lovely to watch the show finish in a really fitting way. It could have just been yanked like so many other shows are on the air these days, right?
yeah,
What a dream.
it's true. It's been a gift to be able to really um, see the show to the end and have such a long amazing journey with it. You know, we're very fortunate. Not a lot of shows make it to season 6. We've done 113 episodes. That is, you know, that is such an achievement. We filmed the show during a global pandemic,
Yeah.
not being shut down once. We really stayed the course, and because everybody, the cast and crew, we all valued each and everyone's safety. So I'm just really thankful. This last season could have gone, you know, really off the rails, but I'm just glad it didn't.
Yeah, you should, and you should be so proud. What I loved about the way it ended was obviously it's a very happy ending, and to me, it really emphasized the value of the workplace in so many of our lives. Like we spend sometimes more time with these people than we do with our own biological families, and and it just kind of, I think what I took away from it was the value of friendship and camaraderie, teamwork, and the workplace. And it made me feel really good. And that is so powerful these days, right? In this day and age, we're seeing so much misery and sadness everywhere. It's so great to just be able to escape for 20 minutes or 25 minutes and just watch these people just be complete clowns and still love each
Yeah,
other. Don't you think?
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, like your work family sort of, you know, becomes, well, you know, in the gay community, we have this saying about our chosen family, and you know, I feel like this work family, even though you didn't choose really to be stuck with these people, it is this family. You know, like personally, this experience. I mean, I've spent longer on Superstore than I have in college. You know, it's been the longest job I've ever held. And these people that we portray in the show, you know, everybody says, you know, like when they watch shows, it's like, oh my God, I know somebody just like Mateo. There's a Dina at my work. You know, and we bicker just like a family. And it is those types of relationships that I think audiences keep coming back to week after week and find so familiar and comforting.
Yeah, absolutely. Does it surprise you at all how the critics have really gotten behind this show? It's a 92% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is really, really impressive. Not many shows can get up to that level. And also, you know, Rotten Tomatoes, which is a great place to go if you want to see what the critical consensus is on a show. The critical consensus for this show is it's one of the greatest workplace comedies ever on TV. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. You know,
Yes.
um, I didn't know that about Rotten Tomatoes. You know, I try not to read a lot of reviews because you know, if you believe the good, you have to believe the bad, right?
Yeah.
So I try not to read into it too much. But I'm just really glad that it really has struck a chord with critics and regular audiences alike. You know, it was such a privilege and a joy to be able to bring these stories to life. Um, I really pinch myself every day. Every time I drive into the Universal lot, I'm just like, I cannot believe I'm getting paid to act like an idiot on screen, and this is my job. And that the stories that we told, you know, like really resonated with people. And we did comedy that I don't know, that had a lot of heart and that had a lot of meaning. And you know, it's not an easy thing to pull off, and I'm just so privileged to be been a part of it.
Definitely. And speaking of the critics, twice in a row, I think the Critics' Choice nominated you in the supporting actor in a comedy category. You're like the cast member that they single out as being, you know, someone that deserves recognition. Does that feel strange, or are you just proud of yourself and you just don't, you know, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, it was surprising. You know, obviously it's an ensemble show, and believe me, I stand on the shoulders of my amazing castmates. I mean, when you work with people like Lauren Ash and Colton Dunnett and Mark McKinney, who is a comedy legend. I mean, I definitely was very surprised that that first nomination came the same year that Crazy Rich Asians was out. And I remember when um, my agents called me and it was like, "Congratulations, you're nominated." I thought they were talking about Crazy Rich Asians being nominated, and I was very just like, "Oh yeah, the movie's been doing really well in the awards circuit. There's been a lot of talk, so yeah, it's great." And they're just like, "Why are you playing it so cool right now? What is wrong with you?" And it's like you're nominated for Superstore, and I like screamed, ran through the hallways, and my boyfriend thought that somebody had died. I was like, what is happening? And then obviously to be nominated again the next year was again such a shock. But whenever I used to watch award shows and they would be like, being nominated, it's such an honor enough. I'm just like, oh, roll your eyes. But man, let me tell you, it is true. The nomination is honor enough. The company that I keep, the other nominees are incredible actors that I wouldn't even dream about being in the same group with. So the fact that I was just lucky enough to be included in that, I don't know. It is a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling,
Yeah.
and it's a nice sort of cherry on top of the sundae.
It makes us so happy to hear actors and performers and artisans talk about that, because I don't think you should be blasé about it. It's a group of people who are saying, hey, we think you are so good and we're going to put you in this little group and we're going to celebrate you. That's amazing. Who gets that? No one.
I mean, listen, listen, I've paid my dues. I've done a lot of crappy open mics in my day, and to be able to come from that to having a job like this, and everything else that comes along with it has just really been just amazing. And like I said, just extra yummy toppings on top
It's
of
beautiful.
the beautiful banana split that I am in.
Oh, now you're making me hungry. I want to get a little bit deeper, and I know people probably do want to do that with you on this show, because you represent various groups that we may want to call marginalized or used to be marginalized, right? And they're no longer that way on a lot of TV shows, thankfully. And I just want to know if you hope that, one of the lasting legacies of this show will be that we can kind of lift up and give space to various people who in the past were never given that opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I am very proud that we were able to tell the stories that we've told. I think this is just the beginning, though. I mean, like year after year, we talk about hashtag representation matters, diversity and inclusion, and how Hollywood has finally turned the corner and changed. But honestly, things haven't changed that much. There was a study that was done just recently. Actually, it came out, I think, like a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, about the number of AAPI leads in film. They looked at 1,300 films from 2007 to 2019, I believe, if I'm remembering the study correctly. Out of all those films, only 44 lead men were Asian or Pacific Islander. 14 of them was The Rock, was Dwayne Johnson. So it's a little bit different in television. Certainly, we've had series regular roles and people, AAPI series regulars who are sort of like leading the story and driving the story forward. But it hasn't changed that much compared to what our white cis straight counterparts
Why is that?
are. The thing is, we can talk about diversity all we want, about putting brown and black and queer faces in front of the camera, but in the end, the gatekeepers, the people who hold the power, are still not very diverse. It's certainly very different now. There's a lot more women in power, and a few people of color in positions of power. But for the most part, it is still not a diverse landscape. We certainly have a lot of allies in those positions, which is great. But I really truly believe that for things to change drastically, um, people behind the camera need to diversify more than people in front of the camera, because that's really how we're going to sort of move things forward.
Yeah, totally. And like as a cis white Aussie guy, it's not that I want to see people like me. I want to see people like in my life, like when I'm out and about. And TV,
Exactly.
like for example, I was watching the Friends reunion, and no disrespect to that show because I loved that when I was much younger, and it's a great show. But I was looking at it thinking it's not diverse at all, and that's a product of its time. But at least we've moved on from that. But we have so much more to go. So I'm glad that you've mentioned that. It's very important.
Yeah, there's a wealth of stories to choose from, and the fact of the matter is just because we are telling a specific story through the lens of somebody who's Pacific Islander or Asian, Filipino, or somebody who's LGBT, doesn't mean that a cis straight Aussie guy like you can't relate to those stories, because in the end, our experiences and our dreams and our wants and our desires are all very universal, right?
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter what lens you filter that through. It's as long as that sort of universal theme is there, I think everybody can relate to it.
Yeah, it's let's all hope that we continue moving forward. The other thing that I really love about the show, like when it first premiered, and as I was telling you offline, I was a bit late to the show, but so we caught up, and I was so drawn to it because it brought back memories from when I was much younger, working in a retail store. That's how I started. That's how I made enough money to kind of pay for rent and things like that. And then then obviously there's so much more to the show now that I love, but that's how I got into it. Do you hear from other fans about how the show is so crazy, but it's sometimes weirdly true to what actually happens?
All the time, all the time. In fact, throughout the years, we'll be reading, we'll get a draft of an episode, and the story that they wrote, they've been writing since like weeks before. All of a sudden that week, that same thing will be like trending on Twitter, or like it's an actual headline that happens. There were so many things that they sort of just got right. It was like they had a crystal ball or something. But just hearing from the fans, my mom works at a big box store, so she will constantly sort of like, yeah, that's right, you got it right that time. Or she will like give us like
Beautiful.
stories, she'll pitch stories, and I'm just like, Mom, not the time. Not the time.
Separation of worlds. Come on now.
Yeah, exactly. Church and state. Church and state.
And then, of course, the thing that I most value about the show, honestly, and something that even though maybe it's not completely appropriate for younger kids, what it does teach us all is the plight of the underdog and how the underdog can actually win. A lot of the people on this show, like the characters, are all either a bit marginalized or they're not as wealthy. They're underdogs, and they end up winning in the end. And I love that. And maybe it sounds cliche and treacly. I don't think it is. I think it's something that we can aspire to. What do you think?
It is one of my favorite things to watch, not just on our show, but any show out there where you are really rooting for that person who is just down and out to have a win. That is, like, I think one of the most joyous journeys to watch. That, and when you see somebody rotten get their comeuppance, those two things, I mean, just chef's kiss. I love watching those stories, and our show has a lot of those moments, and I think that's why people really love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, honestly, that's the truth. And my final question is this: so now that the show's in the rearview mirror, it finished filming it a while ago, and it finished, I think, in March, end of March. When you think back over the years, what will be your fondest memory from the show when you're reflecting on it?
I think for me, the fondest memory was just at the beginning, where I was just sort of like, it was Superstore was my big break. It was my first, series regular job. I was very nervous. And I was meeting like all these new people, these amazing actors. That's sort of like butterflies in your stomach, that really, truly never really fully went away. But I think that's what I'm going to cherish the most, was that we filmed this pilot, and we just didn't know what was ahead of us, and that if I could capture and bottle that feeling, because it was that feeling that really sort of like drove me to sort of want more and pursue more and see see the bigger picture for myself.
Yeah.
So I think that what was really special for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And as you go forward in your career, you'll remember that, and it will give you perspective, and it will also kind of, yeah, it'll probably make you a better performer. And that, on that note, I want to congratulate you on a really strong final season, and thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time today, Nico.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and have fun in Sydney. I wish I was there actually.